Perfect.
Yeah.
Clear, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I still have like a old school setup with 2 monitors going on here, and I really should just buy like a proper camera. All right, so Commissioner Sotier isn't able to join us today. So we can kick off. We don't have to wait for him. So hello, everyone. Note that the meeting is now being recorded. Today is February 22nd, 2022, and I'm calling this meeting of the Central Plymouth County Water District Commission to order. This meeting is being conducted remotely in accordance with the government order suspending certain provisions of open meeting law. Questions and comments from the public will be welcomed. I see that we do have a few people on the meeting with us today. So if anybody would like to contribute at any time, please use the question and answer button or the chat button, or you can also raise your hand and we'll unmute you so that you can ask your question or make your comment. For those joining by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. All votes will be done by roll call to ensure count accuracy. So for roll call, Joanne Zygmunt here, Jack O'Leary here, and Commissioner Mark Sotier is not here today, but with 2 members, we still have a quorum. So we've got quite a lot on the agenda today. The first item is the annual reorganization of the commission. So Commissioner O'Leary, congratulations for being reappointed for another 3-year term.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you.
I'm glad you put up with me.
Were you able to give the?
As my usual statement is, if there's someone who has more time than I do that wants to get involved and be on the commission, I could be talked into resigning, but I'll let the chair be the judge of that.
I know.
I don't
want you going anywhere, Jack.
I talk to people and they aren't lining up to volunteer.
Yeah, we do. We did. I remember a while ago we did talk about having
alternates.
Not alternates, but because I don't think we were allowed to do that according to the legislation. But it was the idea of having like an in-training commissioner.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something we can look more towards doing at the end of the year, because it would be good to have folks a little bit more engaged on that.
Yeah, it's a good practice. I belong to a professional organization that has basically a president and a president-elect. So the analogy is the chair and the chair-elect, so that the next chair is known a year in advance and is involved in all the nuts and bolts of making the organization work. Kind of something we wish we had in the political level, but that's another matter.
Yeah. That's a good idea. That's an interesting way to do it.
It is. It works very well.
Was there anything else at that advisory board meeting worth reporting, or that came up? Any discussion or anything like that?
No,
or was it just a re-election?
It was, yeah. The re-election was a fairly quick meeting. The basic thoughts were you guys are doing a great job and getting a lot accomplished, and I know Bill Bolter did bring up the radio beacons again in Montponset Pond that we've talked about. So I told him I'd just let you guys know about that. But they did hit quorum, and pretty uneventful meeting. They planned on the next meeting happening, I think, around May.
Okay. Were either of Brockton's representatives at the meeting? Do you remember?
They were not.
Okay.
They were not.
Okay.
Pretty much everybody else, other than we're still having problems with the Plimpton rep in even contacting her, or she hasn't responded to any of the requests or updates or minute notice. So
okay.
That's the only thing.
If you have a name, Frank, that maybe I can reach out.
Yes, it's hold on, it's
A lot of our communication occurs on Sunday mornings at the dump where everybody goes to. So
yeah.
that might be well, how I do it.
It was the woman that volunteered was volunteered by Kathy Drynan. Her name is Carly Spencer. She is a student at Regis College. And we have not had any communication with her, even though she was appointed by the Plimpton Select Board.
Yeah, I can see. I don't know her personally, but I can look into it and see what's up. And there's people I know in town who are serial volunteers that would actually participate if Carly was keen. And she, being a student, I give her a lot of credit for even trying.
Yeah, it's a big commitment. Okay. Frank, the other thing that I wanted to ask you is, so we have to re-elect our chair. Is that in February?
So we usually do it the meeting following the appointment of the new the new commissioner. So every year we usually do it in either the February meeting if they met in January, or the March meeting if they met in February.
Okay,
So,
so on the March agenda, we'll redo that.
Yeah, if you want. So that's why I had reorganization. If you want to do it now, you could do it now, or if you want to wait till all three commissioners are there, it's appropriate to table this until March.
Yeah. Jack, do you have any interest in sharing this year?
Well, I think you're doing a hell of a job, so
I'm struggling. I have to say I'm struggling. So I was thinking yeah.
I would defer to your judgment. I'd be happy to be the chair and try and take over some of the put in the energy. If I can put in half the energy you are, I'll be doing all right.
Yeah, or maybe we can do co-chairs. I don't know if that's allowed.
Not really.
I know. And the rules, I hate the rules. But also, well, I don't know if Mark's interested either.
Yeah, I was going to say too bad Mark isn't here. It would have been nice.
Yeah.
But you can't table it.
Yeah. Should we talk about it in March? Okay. Yeah. That sounds good.
And generally my prejudice is if it's something important, a commissioner missing, I'd rather table it.
With all of us. Yeah. So there's so few of us anyway. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Anything else about that advisory board meeting or reorganization in general? Good on that?
Nope. That's all set.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, and the other thing that we should probably do, and maybe we can put this on the March agenda too, is I know we have like a set of bylaws that we created for ourselves. So maybe when we re-elect the chair, we can just do a quick review and make sure we're still happy with everything that's in that. Cool. All right. Approval of minutes for Tuesday, January 25. I had a look and have no comments. Do you have anything, Jack?
I've read them and I have no comments either. They're acceptable as issued.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes of the January 25th, 2022 meeting.
Okay, and Joanne seconds that. All in favor? Joanne, aye.
Jack, aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, finance report and invoice approval. Over to you, Frank, when you're ready.
Great. So I did email out the agenda, the finance report. We did have one check that was cashed during the month of January by Peter Tuttle. That was $1,038, his final payment, and with interest brings the bank account to $479,955.57. And we do have, excuse me. Yep, so that agrees with the bank balance. And we do have that one invoice that I sent out from ESS Group, which is the February 16th invoice for $1,563.64 for services up through February 16. And you will notice that ESS Group on the invoicing now has TRC, which is the new organization that purchased ESS. There is a continuation clause within the contract, so it doesn't really create any issues, but just wanted to call that to your attention.
Okay. Do we need a vote on the approval of the invoice, or is that? we do,
Yes,
right?
yeah, it needs to be in the minutes, and then the email backup is in place of your signature on the document.
The document itself. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve that invoice, Jack?
So moved.
All in favor? Joanne, I.
Jack, aye.
All right. And the motion passes. Super.
Great, that is all.
So great. Thank you, Frank. So update on the ESS project. So ESS and Kimberly Groff are not joining us today. There's nothing really to report. Thank you, Frank, for posting the final clap and sap on the commission's website. So that is still being reviewed. My understanding is by the Environmental Protection Agency. So we're waiting for them to get back with comments. Hopefully at next month's meeting, we will have received them. And so they'll do a report out on the project at that point. Anything else on that, Jack or Frank? No, we're on track, I think. So that's good. Awesome. Hydro dredge. So the memorandum of understanding between the commission and DMF has been signed. Thank you, Jack and Frank, for working on that. Now I think we're just in the process of putting together the RFP, and hopefully in the next couple months we'll be able to get that out. Do you have a timeline, Frank, that you think you're working towards, or is it a bit up in the air?
I still plan on so I plan on getting to that this week. I had 3 large RFPs go out the last 3 weeks. So now on schedule for this, working with Pine and Brad on getting everything together. I'll be having a call with them. Got to set that up with Pine and just go over, make sure everything's all set. But we should be able to have that out no later than the first week of March. So just sliding a little bit and then have that back in to us by May, and allow the commissioners to vote on the May meeting. So
will you need us to, we don't need to as a commission vote or approve the RFP or anything like that before it goes out?
Yeah, it's a good idea. So I can't have that. I'm sorry, I always think of us at the county because I'm chief procurement officer. I'm the one that sends them out, and then the commissioners only approve the winning bid. In the RFP, it'll have that the commissioners can award or not award based on their approval. So it's up to you whether you want to see a final draft, or you just want me to push it out as quickly as I can and get it out prior to the next meeting.
I feel like the latter's okay with me, Jack, but how do you feel?
I like the latter as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jack, I'll
Not a strong preference, but yeah.
yeah, Commissioner, I'll keep you in the loop anyway, because you're on the point person for the committee.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you will actually see the final, and I'll send it out to all the commissioners just as an FYI. But I'll in order not to break any open meeting laws, I'll just work with Commissioner O'Leary.
That sounds good. Yeah, so it's finally moving along. That sounds great.
It is, and Frank, you may have to push me a little bit because I'm leaping ahead to the permitting of the actual use of it and trying to get that figured out so we can plan our funds accordingly. It's not it's complicated.
Great.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else on the hydro dredge?
Nope.
No? Okay. I don't see anything from the people joining us either. All right. So the next item is the watershed meeting follow-up. So at our last meetings, we talked about inviting the watershed groups and related environmental organizations to a commission meeting to talk about issues in the district from their perspective. So the meeting is scheduled for April 26th. I know that Nancy, and please thank Nancy Forrest Frank, has contacted the watershed groups with a save the date. And as she's included the Wildlands Trust and Audubon as well. So I think we're on track for that. Commissioner Sotier has said that he would spearhead that meeting. I'm thinking, and we can talk about this more at next month's meeting, but I was thinking maybe we could do it in an in-person meeting for that, Jack. What do you think, in April? So it'd be the end of April?
I'd love to start having some in-person meetings, yes.
Yeah, so maybe we can make that our first one. Is there preference for a location? So I can ask Old Colony Planning Council if maybe they'd want to host it, but is there anywhere else that you think we should be considering?
The county office in Brockton is one other location, which is convenient for you. I think we talked about hosting meetings at the county offices in Plymouth, which is convenient for me, but it's not convenient for anyone else really, or for Frank as well. So I don't know whether we still have access. It's such easy access to Halifax Town Hall as we did without Kathy being around. But I just don't know.
Oh, we do have.
Mine is suggesting Kingston. That's great for me, and I think the watershed associations for sure. It's a bit of a trip for Brockton.
Yeah, well, and I guess that's the other question. Maybe we can talk about this next month, but are we keeping this as an invitation to the watershed groups and environmental organizations, or do we want to reach out and invite any other people to participate? I kind of feel like the former is probably enough to start with, because I think there's a lot to talk about before we start inviting any electeds. I mean, the electeds all get invited to all of our meetings anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of people that can come to our meetings, and if they pay attention to the agendas, they know when they should come. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree that this is focused on the watershed group. That's fine.
Okay.
I suppose since they are basically centered around Kingston, that is the best location.
Yeah, and if it's just me coming out there and whoever else decides to, then that's not a biggie. Do we have a location in Kingston?
Probably the town hall.
The town hall?
Unless Pine is volunteering the Jones River Watershed building, which is a nice place to have a meeting.
Let's unmute Pine and see what she thinks.
Yeah, we have had meetings at town hall, and Kingston's great to work with, and has been very amenable to allow us into their main meeting room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pine,
yeah, I'm sure we can work with the town in order to get an appropriate room there. But
okay.
we can use the landing as backup. Certainly, it depends on your choice. But
And I'd like to ideally be able to do it so that we can have like a remote listen in as well too. So if it's whichever might have better Wi-Fi and kind of a better setup for like a room camera.
I believe that Canella from the Kingston Conservation Commission is on. You might want to.
Oh, here we go.
Directly.
Here we go. Hold on, Kim. I'm going to unmute you. Welcome, Kim.
No, Matt Canella.
Oh, hey,
Matt.
fine. It's Kim as well.
Oh, Kim's here too.
Sorry about that, Kim.
No worries.
I can't see who's here.
No, that's fine. I was just mentioning that they're welcome to reach out to the town administrator, and our main room in the townhouse is set up with all kinds of wonderful AV equipment through PAC TV.
Oh, great.
So you can do, webinar or Zoom regular, really up to you. But I'm sure
nice.
that as long as there's no conflict with the meeting room, I'm sure you'll be able to use it. Just you have his email address there. So
wonderful. Thank you very much.
okay.
Frank, is that something Nancy can help us with?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. We'll set that up. We work with Keith all the time.
Cool. And we can move the date around if we need to, based obviously on the commissioner's availability as well too. So
Did you want to keep it at 12, or are you going to keep it go to the evening?
I think, Pine, what do you think's better for the watershed people? Do you think evening would be easier?
Not really.
No, day. Okay. So
I mean-
lunchtime is still good?
For me, I mean, evenings are so full of meetings that it's likely that, that there's a few conflicts there. I happen to like the noon thing when I remember. But I mean, if you want me to, I can go out and talk to people, but you know, I'll take a wild stab and say they can probably work that into their schedule.
Yeah. And Jack, does noon work for you for an in-person?
Yeah, it's with all my ability to work remotely from home, I'm right up the street from Kingston Town Hall, so it's good.
Okay, perfect. So let's stick with noon, and then hope folks can join. And if not, we'll record and just engage them separately if we need to.
I'll reach
Okay.
out to, PAC to see if they can give some resources for co-zooming and with the meeting.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, if we can get them to, I don't know, PAC is the, what does the abbreviation stand for?
Plymouth area cable. So it's
Cable.
it's the local cable
For the
and
coastal.
yeah,
Yeah.
for Kingston, Duxbury, Plymouth.
Plymouth.
So Plymouth area Plymouth area cooperative or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
They do Kingston all the time. They do all the meetings, cover all the meetings.
Cool.
in
Yeah.
town.
I wonder if they'd be able to, if we reach out, I wonder if they'd be able to air it as well too.
That they can air it, whether in instant time or not, depends on their schedule probably, but
Yeah,
they can
Oh.
certainly air it later.
go ahead, Kim.
You can also reach out to them with the recordings of any of your past meetings and they can post them on their website as well.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay,
even
great.
this one, if you're recording it, you can send them the recording and they usually put those up on their website and their
Oh,
archive
great.
site.
Oh, great, thank you. Frank, do we have the cable, all the local cable stations on our e-blast list? At all?
We do, and Nancy is pulling, Nancy will forward that, I know you requested the list. Nancy will forward that out this afternoon. But yeah, I do not think that all the local cables are on the list.
Okay, maybe we should
we
add
can
them. Maybe
add.
that's something, yeah, maybe kind of later in the spring, we can kind of review whether we should be sending them recordings and stuff like that as well too, to do a little bit more of that engagement that we're always talking about doing. Awesome. All right, anything else about that watershed meeting? No, I think we're good. Okay. Moving on to diversion approvals and protocols. So I'm going to spend some time before our next meeting trying to pull together a really rough draft of a memorandum of understanding between the DMF Commission, City of Brockton, Halifax, and any other parties that may need to be involved, just to put on paper the process for how diversions outside the allowed window should be requested when there's a flooding situation or a potential flooding situation at Montponset. I haven't done any work on that, but I do intend to talk to John Hobnell as I start to kind of move into drafting that MOU. I think that the interim DPW commissioner, Patrick Hill for the City of Brockton, is confused about the commission's role in that process. And this whole thing was initiated by the select board in Halifax requesting a written process. So I think it's going to be helpful all around for us to have it written down someplace so that we can prevent confusion in the future. Anything on that at all? Anything? Oh, I've got Pine's hand. Jack, before I go to Pine, do you have anything to add on that? So I'm hoping to have a draft for next month. Okay. Go ahead, Pine. I think you can unmute. Yeah.
I think I missed your initial statement, but I did have a conversation with John Hubble, and I'm not sure that I think everybody's confused. Let me put it.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Right.
and I think that it would really help to have an update from the city. Veolia, if Mike Sassine is the one that's regulating the flow out of Monponset Pond. In terms of that regulation, it's, because all of this goes to that TMDL and that's being done for Monponset Pond. And I know that that this past week or so, they've been diverting way more than the 14 million gallons. I think they got up to 22. And with I mentioned that Silver Lake is now Category 5 requiring a TMDL. So putting TMDL water into it could be the reason why. And not really, and I think that it deserves more consideration than anyone really is giving it. But this is a Clean Water Act issue now. It's not just a Brockton or a regional issue now. This is a Clean Water Act issue. This is an EPA list. So, this has been our struggle all along. So I think that it goes back to not just, Monponset Pond is getting high, but why is Monponset Pond getting high? And can we have an early warning system in terms of the weather so that there's more action taken before the situation becomes critical with flooding in Halifax or Hanson or wherever? Because I agree with them that the level of pollutants in Monponset Pond is rising when yards are flooded. That's a no-brainer idea, but why is that happening? Is it happening because of the regulation at the dam? Is the dam just too high? Does that need a modification? Is there another way that we can create improvements to that diversion with ARPA funds and whatnot that would assist the city of Brockton and the rest of the region in terms of our natural resources? That's where I would really like to go with it, rather than looking at it as a, who's in charge kind of thing. We got a problem to fix here. And so it goes beyond that, if you don't mind, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Pine. I think that's something we all agree on. I think the request from the select board to the commission was the very basic first step of who actually is involved in the decision making. In a email exchange that I had with the DPW commissioner in Brockton, he doesn't view the commission as having any role in that diversion process, which in my interpretation of the actual legislation is not the case, but he interpreted it differently. So this MOU, I think the intention was just to be a very simple one-pager that literally says, when there's an issue, the town of Halifax would contact, this person who would then contact this person, or however that process lays out. And that would kind of be it. Addressing the actual issue, I think, is the step 2 off the back of that. And I think, as you say, Pine, that's hopefully going to start to be seriously discussed as part of the TMDL now. That's going to have to happen. So maybe and I can reach out to the DPW commissioner, maybe if we're doing the summit in April, so maybe for the May meeting, we can ask Brockton to come and talk to us about the TMDL for Silver Lake now, and what that means and what that's going to look like. And maybe Jonathan Hobnell could as well. How does that sound? Do you have any thoughts on that, Jack?
Well, I do. I was going to say the DPW commissioner is just plain wrong, and he's not acting consistently with how things were operated in the past, and he needs to justify that. This was very simply and easily handled during my early years in the commission by a simple phone call and emergency meeting of the commission to authorize it. I don't understand why that can't happen, because it's not a major decision to simply open the sluice crater on the Stump Brook Dam and let the water drop to save those people's lives.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure what the short-term answer is in that, because if we have a system now where one recalcitrant person can gum up the whole works, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think it's just, I don't think there was a very the impression I get is he just doesn't know. So if he's told, and shown, then I feel like there's not going to be an issue. And if it's written down on paper and DER is part of it, then I think it'll be
Yeah,
hopefully pretty straightforward.
but has there been an episode where action should have been taken and it wasn't? That's
Not that I'm aware of, no.
okay. That's because I'm seeing this email and it looks like it's pretty far gone. Someone's talking about a wall in the yard being flooded.
Oh, so you're talking about, yeah, so you're talking about just for folks on the call, the commission did receive an email from a resident in Halifax who
Yes.
was concerned about rising water at her home on Monpont Pond. So as far as I'm aware, I don't think the town of Halifax has officially requested anything for Brockton to do. So Frank?
Well, the way it worked
Oh.
before was that the resident would contact usually the town manager, and
Right,
then we'd get contacted, and we'd contact Brian Frieden, the water system manager, and have a quick telephone meeting to authorize whatever would need to be done to lower bond service.
right. And that's what we
Rapidly
did. I think it was in September.
Yeah, rapidly responded to. So it wasn't really an issue for anyone. It didn't
Yeah.
affect the water
Yeah, but we
system's
haven't-
operation.
Yeah, but the town hasn't officially requested anything from anyone. Frank, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so I did get a call the other day from Gilbert Amato, who is the health agent from Hanson, not Halifax, but Hanson.
Yep.
And he did say that he was concerned about the West Pond being 5 inches over the dam level. And that according to him, the sluice gate was open full. And he wanted to find out who to talk to about water levels in the pond. And I did give him Jim Hopbell?
John Hobnell?
John
Hubble.
Hobnell.
John Hubble?
Hubble.
Yeah, I gave him
H-U-B-I-L.
his contact information, and he was gonna reach out to him, and then I said to drop us an email just so I could inform the commissioners as to any discussions, just so keep you guys in the loop.
Yeah,
And I
I
have
think
not
with the
got-
process, we don't really step in until the town requests it. So residents need to go to the town, and then that triggers when or if the commission gets involved.
But
Not
I-
if, but when.
Chair,
Yeah.
is Brian Creedon no longer involved in this process? He facilitated it before.
I think it's just the water department. So I think it's, I mean, so my understanding is that it's DER, according to the legislation, DER has to, I forget what exactly the term is, but they authorize it. And then we stamp it. And then Brockton does it. And that's essentially what's going to be written in the MOU. And so I would imagine that we would, when it's requested, it would be requested through the DPW commissioner as opposed to Brian Creedon. Like you'd want to go to the very top, I think.
Mhm.
And probably copy Brian in. Like that would be good practice, I would imagine, whoever the water manager is. Yeah. Pine, before I go back to you, I know there's somebody on the phone ending in 849. You've had your hand up for a while. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to unmute you.
That's Don Howard.
Oh, that's Dawn.
From-
Hi, Dawn.
Yeah, from Hanson.
Dawn, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something? You're muted. No? Okay. Dawn, if you do want to speak, you do have permission, so just unmute yourself if you do. Pine, go ahead.
So I just want to hopefully clarify some things. I think that the reduction in the amount of water was a DEP order. It's DEP, not DER, Chair. That's
Oh, sorry. I
So,
totally,
just
yeah,
for the record, just for the record.
yeah, thank you.
So DEP lowered the amount of water that TMDL Monpont Pond could be discharged into Silver Lake from the 30. Brockton used to do 28 to 30 million gallons a day during the diversion period. So the diversion period is October to May, right? They don't need your permission to divert
Right.
between October and May. But I think where the confusion is right now is they wanted to divert more than the 14 or 15 million gallons that DEP had said was your cap. I'm sure, sorry that I don't know what the cap was. Maybe it was 17 million. But I think that might be a confusing issue right now.
Mhm.
And in that case, I don't think it's your authority. I think it is
No.
DEP's authority. But I think that DEP should be consulting with you now that, you know, you're back in full force kind of thing, because you should be, you know, the public should be engaged. It shouldn't just be a you know, flinging the hat to the hat rack, right? There needs to be more communication because it matters, because of the water quality issues and because of the you know, the flooding issues around Monpont Pond. Certainly, I'm in, you know, I understand their problem over there. But and the other thing is that there are two control structures at Monpont Pond. John Hubble last Friday told me that the fish ladder, which is usually where the boards go in, it was fully open. And I promised him I was going over there to check, because I don't know who's been over there recently or at all. And then there's that low level outlet that is far below the spillway. So you've got the spillway, which is the guiding elevation of 52.5 or whatever. And then the fish a little lower than that. And then below that, I think 3 feet down, you've got this 2 foot by 2 foot opening, or something like that, you know, where it's a control that must be operated by the city of Brockton because it's their dam, right? So they can open that. But I think that's more of an issue because they're always afraid that they can't close it again. Because if, you know, the debris gets stuck in it and stuff like that, it requires, you know, dangerous diving or, you know, all kinds of. So I think those are the issues. You know, it's not just a simple decision, in other words. So, but that's why I want to strongly advance that. Look, we're cooperating with you now because we're stuck and we have nothing to do. But this is the direction we need to go in. You know, sorry, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you, Pine. I think that's an important point, and I totally overlooked that. And maybe that explains why the DPW commissioner didn't. It seemed to me like he didn't understand our authority, because maybe he was thinking above and beyond that number.
Yeah, he was just thinking what.
That's probably what he was thinking.
DEP said you can't go over this, and they said, hey, we have to go over this. So they eliminated you from the conversation.
Right. Yeah.
But only because it's this time of year. Come May 1st, it's only in your court. You know, DEP shouldn't have any authority without.
They do. They still. Right, they don't. So it's the two of us together. So
Right.
That's what the legislation says. Yeah, but make that, yeah. Okay, so I think that's a good point to unpack both of those things in the MOU, and to use the MOU to encourage them to reach out to us, even though technically, according to the legislation, they don't have to, and more widely to the public as well. Okay, Dawn, you've got your hand up, I think. You can unmute yourself. I think it's *6 to unmute. No, Dawn. Dawn, you're still muted and we can't hear. Oh, there you go.
Can you hear
Dawn?
me?
Yes, we can
Can
now.
you- Oh, you can hear me now. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I've been trying for 10 minutes.
Oh.
No, they're having problems over in Stumpbrook and Hanson and Halifax because of the fact there's a lot of beaver over there and they're damming up the water. And that's one of the biggest problems out now in here. I just wanted to let you know what the reason was. And
Okay.
I don't know if they're going to try to remove the beaver, which I don't think they can, and because they've got their houses over there, and if they move the beaver, they got to move the houses, and I don't think they know how to do that yet. So
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that. That's why the water's real high over there in Hanson and Halifax.
Thank you, Dawn, for sharing that.
Thanks, Dawn.
Pine, you've got your hand up.
I was just wondering if Don knows if the Division of Fish and Game is involved in that, because that would be their wheelhouse.
Yes, they are. They are involved, yes.
Thanks. Do you know if Steve Hurley's involved?
I don't know. I know John Hobble is, and I don't know if Steve is or not, Pine.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Don. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Pine. Thank you, Dawn.
Okay.
All right, and anything else about the diversion approvals and protocols? No? All right, so moving on. Standing item on the agenda is just update on information on Brockton water supply agreements and possible action. I haven't received anything new from Brockton. I still haven't had a chance to read those agreements in detail either. Do you have anything on that, Jack, or should we just leave that on as a standing item?
I think we should leave it on as a standing item. It kind of ties into the next item.
The next,
missions,
yeah.
goals and stuff anyway. So.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So we'll leave that and move on to the next thing, which is 2022 goals for the commission. So Jack, you requested this agenda item, so I'll let you kick off.
Yeah, it's a perennial favorite for me. I think I've mentioned in past meetings that in my discussions with various other officials, that they're really looking for this commission to take a leadership role in solving some of these problems, because we represent a whole district, not just an individual water system or city or town. And I keep picking up more information that only underscores this. I was listening to a news podcast, and I heard something about water commissioners coming up, and I backed up and listened to it, and it didn't affect us directly, but they were pointing out that there's a lot of issues with water supply across the country, and that a big part of the problem is that they're run by individual cities and towns, and there really isn't much in the way of coordination between them. Although there certainly are attempts through the EPA and the state agencies. And I was thinking that how, in many ways, our commission is a little bit on the forefront, because for better or for worse, the legislature saw the value in having a regional commission, and we're it. So it just underscores the point. Other things I've been hearing are a little disturbing too. I'm working on both a project that's not public yet in Brockton, a pretty major project, and I'm working on a project in the town of Dayton, which hosts the desalination plant. And the official in Dayton told me that they were discussing it with a Brockton official who's unnamed, who indicated that the city was trying to basically release itself from any commitment to using that desalination plant, which is something that certainly is of concern to the commission. In Brockton, I, as I often do, I read the city's master plan with regard to my project to see if my project fell within the goals, city's development goals. Unfortunately, it does, and I think it would be a very welcome project when it's made public. But I think Pine pointed this out a number of years ago. The master plan has discussions about infrastructure, and with regard to water, all it says is that Brockton has really cheap water, and this is a big benefit to the city. There was nothing in there about upgrading or maintaining an old water system that's having, not environmental effects on its reservoir. So that's where we have to somehow, as we talked about with the diversions and the water levels in Montponset, that's kind of a microcosm for how we kind of have to find some way to pull everybody together and turn this district and these various water systems into one, to the extent possible, one goal that of sustainable and resilient water for it. One other item that came up is there was a seminar last weekend on saltwater intrusion that was given by a couple of professors. I think one was from UMass, one was from the University of Delaware, hosted by the Pine Barrens people. And for the public's benefit, saltwater intrusion is when you have a water supply well in a coastal community or a community near the coast, and through either lack of rainfall or pumping of the water, you unintentionally pull the salt water from under the ocean towards the fresh water where your well is drawn from, and has the potential to increase the salinity and cause health effects. Kind of an academic subject, but when they showed a map of the communities that might be affected by this, they included Pembroke, Kingston, and Plimpton, which are 3 of our communities in our district. Should that happen to these communities, they have some interest in getting additional water supplies, and they host Silver Lake, so that's an obvious source potentially. So I think as a goal, we should be looking at putting together some kind of a program or report or something that takes a good hard look at all these issues and outlines a future plan so that all of our constituents have safe, adequate water supplies without harming the environment to the extent they are now. To be specific, I think one thing we really ought to take a look at is Brockton has had some water emergencies in the past. What happens if something occurs to Silver Lake or to the treatment plant or to the desalinization plant? Where's Brockton going to get its water in the heart? That might be an appropriate goal for the ARPA money we're going to talk about next.
There's also many things on that. So that project that you're referring to, Jack, I'm actually in my Old Colony Planning Council day job. I'm actually on the steering group for that. It's a really interesting project funded through the municipal, the one that you went to the presentation, the saltwater intrusion with the pine barrens.
Oh, yes, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a 2-year project that kicked off a few months ago. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the vulnerability is for our region, because it's not really been discussed. But you're right, because then kind of off the back of that too, at one point back in the day, the Plymouth Carver Aquifer was actually considered as a source for Brockton as well, because it's pretty significant.
I was on that committee quite a while ago. Yeah, actually,
yeah.
we were trying to discourage MWRA at the time in favor of Brockton and our other local communities. But yeah, it's a great source. It's a large aquifer that can be very productive.
Yeah.
But the models on it are all pretty old.
Yeah. So
practice. So that's why we're taking another run at it.
Yeah. And I've so the municipal vulnerability program as well too. I've informally spoken to the regional coordinators that cover our district and OCPC's region about the idea of doing like a climate resiliency or water vulnerability study for the whole area, funded in part by MVP, and they're definitely interested. So we could look to partner as the commission with a municipality, because unfortunately the commission can't apply. It would have to be a municipality that leads the application and then gets letters of support from all the municipalities involved, any other stakeholders, the commission, et cetera, to then apply to do a regional study. So we could definitely look to that as a potential funding source. I think the next MVP round, I think we missed the boat on this one, or I think we could technically get an application in, but we wouldn't be able to get any feedback on an expression of interest. So it might be something to look to maybe next year. I can check the timeline on that. But some other stuff that's happening in Brockton right now that I'm going to try and find some more information out about in time for our next meeting. I know that the finance office is currently working on Brockton's very first capital investment. What do you call it? Capital investment plan. I don't know if they're looking at their enterprise funds related capital assets as part of that, or if it's just more of a municipal buildings type thing. I don't know what the scope of that capital improvement plan is, but my hope is that it would include all the city's assets, which would be its water and sewer infrastructure as well. So I'm interested to see whether that encompasses any aquaria elements or any Silver Lake line improvements as well. So that's one thing that's happening. The debate over whether or not Aquarius should be purchased is again starting to bubble up in the city. There are some elected officials who are encouraging purchase of the plant, others who are discouraging the purchase. No new information, as far as I'm aware, has actually been presented since I think 2016 or so, when a consulting firm did an evaluation, a very high level evaluation of Aquaria as an asset. I think there are a lot of gaps in Brockton's knowledge right now that make it difficult to make any decision. My understanding is that Brockton doesn't have any robust water demand projections, which I kind of find hard to believe. I would think that they have to be somewhere for some purpose as part of something, but I haven't been able to get my hands on them. So I don't know how they're making decisions about what assets they need in terms of water supply if they don't actually know how much water they need in the near to medium term future. So there's a lot of stuff happening, but that kind of a 2022 goal for the commission. I mean, talking about specifics, I think, so we've got the water quality project off the ground. I don't, now with this TMDL, and hopefully if we can invite state officials as well as the city of Brockton to our May meeting to talk more about that TMDL and what it means, maybe we'll understand better at that point whether ongoing water quality monitoring at Silver Lake is now going to happen. Because what I'm thinking in the back of my mind is we've extended our project to the fall, sort of the start of fall, but we should start thinking about whether we need to budget and find money for continued water quality monitoring at Silver Lake. So that's, I think, a goal for this year is to figure out the continuation of that water quality monitoring stuff. And then, so that's a big thing. And then, so that's my first thing. Second thing is stakeholder engagement. So there are many new elected officials in Brockton, but also across our district, and town staff and town managers and all sorts of people that are new this year. I think it would be a good time to collaborate with Jones River to do some outreach tours, get people out into the Silver Lake and Monpont areas and kind of do that legislative tour, if you will, that was done several years ago through Jones River. So that's, I think, something that we should definitely do this spring as well, provide that opportunity. And then I think, now that we've got the hydro dredge moving, the water quality stuff, those were our big ticket items. I think we should actually look to commission. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I can imagine it will be really expensive to do the whole area, looking at projected water demand, vulnerabilities, and potential sources, sustainable sources. But I think we should definitely start looking towards commissioning that kind of study. I think that's our next step.
Yeah, that's what I'm
exactly.
referring to. Well,
Yeah.
I must admit, as being an engineer, my prejudice is on my sleeve, and I am hoping to shorten the studies and bring the daily lay pipe a lot sooner, because I think there's a certain urgency to this. Don't forget, and I just want to emphasize too that even though the Brockton water system is the biggest one in our district, we represent the whole district, and some of our constituents have fins too. So we really need to try and not necessarily leapfrog things, but I think we got to go and mix it up with people and get people talking and say, look, there's the potential for long-term sustainability issues. There's also, before most of our time, but Brockton had a real water emergency in the 60s. And that could happen again. And we have a solution to that sitting there, at least on an emergency basis, if we could get Brockton hooked up to the MWRA system. And it would greatly relieve that Because this, don't forget, the water system we're dealing with now was set up in response to that emergency. And frankly, with hindsight, a lot of corners are part of the problem right now. And rather than be subject to the next emergency and make another rash, foolish decision, I'd like to see us have some built-in emergency switch to make Brockton's water system work when it needs to, while we're pursuing these long-term goals. So I'd like to try to think of all that as we progress during the year too. Is that something that we can financially and politically make happen? I'm just looking at the ARPA money, how little it is, frankly. It might fund a big chunk of that.
Yeah.
So it's like,
So can we move on to that, or do you have anything else to add about the 2022 goals?
that's all. I like to keep that on as an
Okay.
agenda item for
Yep.
discussion at the next meeting. Obviously, it's a big decision, so we definitely want all commissioners present to
For sure.
point in a given direction.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Jack. So plan development process for ARPA and infrastructure funds. What are you thinking here, Jack?
I think I kind of already said it, that
Yeah.
we could, we could make a suggestion that if Brockton filed for them, that look at some kind of a contingency connection so that they were protected from emergency situations.
I think,
that could be done very quick. That might be able to be done quickly enough to get those funds this year.
Sorry, I'm just making a note.
It could be something else too, like what if we've had issues with the pipes connecting to Silver Lake? They're old. That's the other civil engineer rant I like to throw into this, is that infrastructure doesn't last forever. It needs maintenance and replacement, and people take it for granted. This is 100-plus-year-old water system in many cases.
Yeah, and I don't know. So I don't know if I imagine, again, I just don't know because I can't really get any straightforward answers, but I would imagine that the DPW has a plan for managing their infrastructure. I don't know to what extent that those capital needs are being included in the citywide capital improvement plan that's being developed.
Yep.
I'm going to try and dig around and find out some more stuff, but like, yeah, like that would, I would imagine, hopefully that would be a top priority, is that line.
I can't speak for this particular situation, but the usual DPW situation is they start off all earnest and identify all the areas they're going to need funding for. And by the time it percolates up to the city council and the mayor, it's not a priority anymore.
Yeah.
They can't get the money they need to do what they know they need to do.
Yeah.
And they could probably use support from people like us.
Yeah.
That's kind of our, I keep harping on this, but by making this into a regional issue, I think we can justify bringing in a lot more outside funds than a single city.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Brockton uses us for that aggressively, because I think we cooperate with it.
Yeah. And the ARPA money specifically is supposed to be used for water sewer infrastructure as well, too. Like that's one of the specific categories. So
Yeah.
I'll also try and find out how the ARPA money is being spent in Brockton. I know that some of it, I believe, was diverted to water sewer, but I don't know specifically for what kind of work or what projects where. But I'll try and find more information about that as well, too. I do know that Jones River did submit that application to the nonprofit grant opportunity that's funded by ARPA to support the project at Forge Pond. But decisions they haven't been made yet. I think the timeline is like within the next couple of weeks. They should make those announcements, so we'll see what comes of that. But Frank, is the county getting any more money?
Well, the county is handling the ARPA money for the county, locate the municipalities. So
And it's still
it's
just going directly out to municipalities. There's no opportunity to apply for regional stuff.
There's two, pieces of ARPA money. It's the NEU money that goes directly from the state to to the towns. But then there's the larger, the $100 million bucket is going to be allocated to each town. So the city of Brockton's council and mayor will have a say in how they use their money. And then as each of the town administrative managers and board selectmen for their money. There's a great website that explains the buckets that can be utilized, the process, and that's Plymouth County ARPA.org. And that's a website that the county has put up. Treasurer O'Brien is managing that program for the county, but it explains the guidelines and process for the funds. The county's not withholding money at the regional level because that's not what the local towns and legislators asked for.
Right.
So each town will have by population percentage of the total pot distributed back, less a small admin, distributed back to the towns on a application basis. But it's the mayor or the town administrators are the ones that'll be the main process checkpoint people.
So if we're hoping to access any of the ARPA funds in support of this vulnerability assessment, then we would need to work at each municipality's level to try and get them to commit some of those toward the initiative.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So I do know that some of the towns are looking at some water infrastructure projects, but not very few towns have actually submitted applications or for proceeds yet.
Okay. And my understanding as well too is the money that's coming through for infrastructure funds and things at the federal government level is mostly going to go through existing grant opportunities that annually or biannually occur or reoccur. So we could look towards applying to some of those when they pop up. I think maybe what we can kind of keep in the back of our minds, Jack, is whether or not we need to have somebody in mind to be a grant writer for us. Those federal grants often take quite a lot of work to put together. I don't think that's something a commissioner would probably have enough time to volunteer for, to do on their own.
Yep.
So yeah, so maybe we need to just keep in the back of our minds some little bit of money for that.
Oh, yeah.
I also don't know, do you know people who do that kind of grant writing? Because I don't have anybody in my network like that.
I can probably find someone off the top of my head. Actually, the Jones River folks did the last major federal grant writing for us a number of years ago. But I think we need to can't burden them.
Yeah, I think they've got a whole bunch of stuff going on, I know.
Yeah.
So let's think about that. I'm also not, apart from the economic development related grants that I work on through my day job, I'm not entirely familiar with the infrastructure grants that are available at the federal level. So I can try and do some digging around that too, to help identify what the buckets are, what they might be.
Mhm.
I do see we have a rep from Senator Brady's office. Al is with us today. Al, I'm going to unmute you now just to see if you've got any updates or any thoughts on funding buckets or what's happening at the federal or state levels with the infrastructure stuff in ARPA. I'm just gonna, here you go. I think you should be able to talk, Al.
Okay,
Hi, Al.
all right. I think I'm unmuted now.
Yep, you are.
No, I don't, I really don't know what is going to be available in the opera right now.
Okay.
There's, I know the state is receiving $1 billion for water infrastructure. How they're planning on spending that, I have no idea until a bill is filed. In which case we can make our voices heard at that time.
Okay,
We will be discussing the fiscal 2023 budget shortly. So we'd be interested in getting some ideas. The funds would be a little more limited than the opera, but we were thinking about, number one, 50,000 for the operating expense.
mm-hmm.
We've been doing the 125,000 for the treatments. That goes directly to the town of Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just wondering what additional monies you may need for new projects or ongoing projects, or maybe the water quality thing.
Al, when do you expect the bill to be filed? Mine's asking that question.
Actually, we had a meeting with Congressman Auchincloss relating to PFAS testing in Easton, and he suggested that we attempt to utilize the ARPA funds for that, the 1 billion that's coming to the state for that. But there's been no timetable as yet as to when they, plan on deciding how to spend that money.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know you said that you think there's less money available. I think, Jack, my opinion is that I think we should try and get an earmark in for a water vulnerability assessment for the district. And that way you can top off the monies that we've got left after the hydrogen and the water quality stuff. And maybe we could ask ESS just for a really rough ballpark of what it might cost on an annual basis to do ongoing water quality monitoring at Silver Lake. What do you think?
Yeah, that would be a good idea. If I can get some ideas of what you're looking for. And when things come available, we can address them, number one, through the opera bill, and also a water quality assessment.
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
there may be other towns that are looking into that too. Either Brockton or one of the towns, or a couple of the towns may be looking into doing a water quality assessment of their local towns or city. Now with the PFAS contamination erupting throughout the state, I think that's become a level of concern for a lot of towns.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there's a lot of towns in OCPC's region that are dealing with it. Brockton, Easton, Bridgewater.
Even Plimpton had a
Plimpton.
issue down by their dump.
Okay.
But Easton came up. They were one of the first, maybe 3 years ago. It was found in one of their wells. And now it's been found in 6 of their 7 wells.
Yeah.
So they're looking into trying to do a big water treatment thing.
Yeah. And I think my understanding is too, and I might be wrong on this, but I think the state is providing some free private well testing as well too.
Yeah, they have been
for a while as well too. Yeah.
a little bit,
private
not
well
too
issue.
much, and not really
Not very comprehensive.
too widely announced. Yeah.
I got on the notice. I have a private well in my home, and they tease me and they turn me down for the program. So
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm not especially concerned because this anyway.
Yeah.
A public water supply is a different animal.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so maybe what we can do, and I'm just thinking about, so when do you need, Al, a number and kind of some specific text about the requests?
Probably by the beginning of March, we'll be starting the meetings with Ways and Means.
Okay, so maybe what I'll do, I will pull together a few sentences and throw out a number and send it to Jack and Mark, and I'll copy you, Frank. And then Jack and Mark, if they have any comments on that, they can let Frank know. And then Frank can send that off once Jack and Mark have looked at it over to Al and Senator Brady to have a look at and see what they think. And that way we don't have to do another meeting to kind of talk about it. So I'll just focus, Jack, on what we talked about, like the ongoing water quality monitoring. I'll ask ESS for like a really rough estimate. And then just kind of pull out a number for the water vulnerability assessment stuff and focus on those two things. Okay, does that sound okay, Al?
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Okay, cool. So I'll get that ball rolling later this week. So we get it over
Okay.
to you in time. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Al.
you. Thank you for everything you're doing there.
Onwards and forwards.
Don't worry, Al,
All
the
right.
pay's really good.
Well, there's a lot of us that want to limit, avoid that thing that Brockton went through in the 60s, because I was there for it and nobody wants that again.
No, nobody
Yeah,
wants that.
Yeah.
I was a little baby, but I heard some stories and I just, ultimately, that's why we do this, is to protect the people and use the water in our district. And, emergencies cause problems. Also, fixing them without a clearly thought out plan is usually a lot more expensive than putting together a plan for a resilient water system. That's why one of the reasons I'm focusing on this is it's, other water systems, you should see the rates people pay, and Brockton is probably going to be there, but approaching that, but we wouldn't want them to have to pay more. But,
Right. And it's also
You're doing
preventing.
a lot better job of communicating your goals, and you're getting a lot more support from the people now because of that. And so that's a really important part of it.
Yep, I agree. It's
Yeah.
we need to have a few more in-person meetings in the city, and I'd still like to see the schools and the teachers get engaged in this too. I think that would be very energizing.
Yeah. So one other, thank you very much, Al.
Okay.
Jack, just one other thing, kind of just a funding idea. So the Economic Development Agency does have some funding opportunities, to which I think that this water vulnerability assessment idea could qualify. But the catch is that for those applications, you have to demonstrate how many jobs will be created from the project. And I could demonstrate how many jobs could be lost from the project, maybe with some creative mathematics there. But I struggle to suggest how many jobs could be created through such a study. And that really is the catch with anything that gets funded by the Economic Development Administration. I don't know if you have any thoughts on how we might be able to demonstrate how jobs will be created.
I have to think about that. Most jobs are really created by entrepreneurs responding to new conditions. So if the program results in a new condition that invites entrepreneurs to come up with new ideas, number of jobs knows no limit. But construction jobs to lay pipe, it's pretty easy to predict that, but they're all temporary.
Right.
I mean, the fantasy I like to spin is that Brockton becomes the world center for water conservation through some new technologies that someone who's now a student at Brockton High invents, and suddenly Brockton leaps forward to being the Paris of the Western Hemisphere. But that's my fantasy, but it's hard to predict that stuff.
It is.
Bringing water to a new area for development is one way that comes to mind, but where does Brockton have that?
Right. And it wouldn't necessarily have to be Brockton focused. It could be for the region. And so, like, for example, I know for a fact that Avon's Industrial Park, their growth is limited because they don't have access to enough supply.
That's true, yeah.
So, you could potentially demonstrate that increasing supply there would create additional jobs because the existing businesses or other businesses might come and grow and things like that. But that's
Whitman-
just one small. Whitman.
Whitman is, I knowing Whitman fairly well, I think they're mainly limited by lack of available land that's not a wetland.
Right.
So I have
That's often the
worked on-
case with Plimpton as well.
Yeah, Plimpton, it's pretty tight now.
Yeah.
I mean, ironically, in Whitman, we've been developing subdivisions on land that was industrial zone just because the industrial zone was wrapped around the railroad, which is now MBTA lines. There's no real incentive to make it industrial. I'll have to think about that one. There's redevelopment is what really comes to mind. Is there redevelopment that creates long-lasting jobs? When I see lots of apartments going in, that's again short-term jobs and then no jobs. Really.
Right. And the EDA is looking for longer term jobs. They're not interested
Yeah.
in short-term job creation.
Facilities, medical or governmental facilities or
Right.
industrial facilities. And that's
Right.
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, think about it in the back of your mind, and if anything comes up, let me know. Because I'm really struggling with that. I think we'd have a good chance of getting the money. There's a lot of money there, but making that connection has just been a real challenge. So there might be just better federal pots of money on the infrastructure side that are more suitable for what we want to do.
Yeah.
But all right, good stuff. Is there any other business? Or are there any comments or questions that anybody on the meeting today would like to make? Pine, you asked about more specific guidelines for ARPA funds. I don't think there are. I think it's just kind of broadly water infrastructure related.
I guess the question was, could ARPA funds, in my letter to the legislature, and I think I copied you guys on it last September, suggesting that, Brockton do buy Aquaria, that they do run a water supply line from Halifax up Route 36 to the treatment plant and take out the 3 dams on Stump Brook, Jones River, and Herring Brook and Pembroke, and restore all of those things and connect to MWRA, going to what Jack was just talking about. If you guys jump on with the redevelopment of the old air yard over there that has just switched hands again, and instead of that development taking water from Aquaria that Brockton's not using through Brockton, put a pipe to Brockton and also supply Weymouth and Stoughton and Abington and Rockland and Avon and backup supply to Brockton, you'd have a pretty significant economic development. And you would solve the problem for 100 or 200 years. I'm not suggesting, like others would, that Brockton should be entirely on the MWRA, because I do not think that is the most resilient or sustainable supply. I think maintaining the right balance would work, though, and it would work for everybody. It wouldn't just be, this theft game that is ruining the Finns in the area, as well as some of the rest of us.
Yeah, I think the majority of that stuff would be eligible for ARPA funds.
I mean,
but
you could spend an awful lot of that $1 billion that he was just talking about that way, and it would take, how long would it take? It would take maybe 10 years to pull it all off, but you could, and it would be a big job creation in process as well as after the fact, because what does Brockton always complain about? But, it can't give this one water and that one water. And what do we complain about? It's, some court allowed them to give them water. You know what I mean? It's just a battle with no end. And it's the thing that stops us from all going anywhere, including saving the planet. So,
so the money that you're talking about, those billions, so that's what Al was talking about, not knowing how it's going to be distributed yet or for what. PFAS is getting a lot more attention right now than water supply anywhere.
Well,
So
that's
it might end up,
sorry. I
no, I was just gonna say, it might end up that they focus on providing funds to municipalities for treatment
yeah,
as opposed to anything else.
but that's not going to advance. It might save a few lives, you know? We won't be like lobsters carrying PFAS around with us, maybe sometime in the future, but it's not going to solve a problem
Where are we going?
other than counteract the problem that
lobsters
we
in this?
created by spreading it all around.
Yeah.
So Al, are you still with us? You still there?
I'm still here.
Al, is there an opportunity to influence anybody at the state or federal level about that money? Like, could the commission write a letter just reiterating how important we think supply issues are and regional resiliency on water and stuff like that? Like, would that be helpful at this point, or are they just going to kind of go down the road of deciding how they want to distribute it?
Well, it's
Anyway.
always a good idea to send a letter. And it would be a good idea maybe to send a letter right now to the governor.
Okay.
Because usually what happens is the state will receive the money and the governor will file a supplemental budget. We'll go to the House and the House will do their own, and then the Senate will do their own. And then there'll be a conference to determine how they're going to go about it. And then the governor will decide whether he wants to sign it or veto part of it, but that's a general practice.
Okay. Jack, do you have any time to write a letter and work with Frank to send it out, or?
I do. Well, I don't, but I will. I
Yeah.
just put it on my list. So, Al, I'll be in touch. We will probably, this is a relatively quiet week at work, so I think I should be able to be in touch this week.
All right.
I'll give you some kind of a draft to look at, and then you can tear it to shreds and have me fix it. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, we'd like to get prepared, even though we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, if we're more prepared for it.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it'll happen quick. It'll happen fast once it comes.
exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of stepping back. My long-term goal thing is to be ready for things like this with facts and figures and plans, so that when the money shows up, we can be at this in line with the MWRA and whatever other water system is wants
Right.
to jump on and get our fair share for our constituents.
All right. Looking forward to hearing from you. I know I came to you one other time about 5 years ago for some help in
Oh, yeah.
funding needs. Yeah. And that
We've
was
had
a little,
fun.
I needed them like the next day, which we can't do much with that.
I love emergencies,
Yeah.
except water emergencies affecting the city of Brockton. I
Right. Yeah.
don't like that one.
Yeah. Okay, great. Great. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Al. Jack, do we need to vote to approve you to be able to work with Al and send this letter to the governor? No, we don't need to do any of that. Okay.
I don't think so. If the letter
Okay, great.
comes, we've done it informally before.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else, Jack?
I do not. Nope. I'm ready to
Nope.
adjourn.
Anything else from anybody on the call? Nope. All right. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And I'll second that. All in favor, Joanne, I.
Jack, aye.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you,
Goodbye,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye, John.
everyone.
Thank you very much, Frank.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.